NORA is the computer program. It stands for Non-Obvious Relationship Awareness. And in seconds, it crunches through multiple databases to detect non-obvious connections between people. Among those now using Jonas's technology is the super-secret National Security Agency.
What's so effective about Jeff Jonas's NORA program is that it strips away the false veneer that criminals or terrorists put up. His software rips that away and exposes the person underneath. That's why the intelligence agencies are so interested in his software, because they want to use NORA to strip away the phony identities of the terrorists who would do us harm.
What strikes me about the hijackers on 9/11 was how little the country knew about them.
Well, taking a look retrospectively at the 19 hijackers, our government knew about Nawak al-Hamzi and Khalid al-Mihdhar.
This is what Jonas means by non-obvious relationships. Two of the attackers, Nawaif al-Hazmi and Khalid al-Mihdhar, were already on government watch lists.
We knew they were involved in the Cole bombing. And on August 23rd of 2001, the CIA tells the INS and the FBI and the Coast Guard not to let them in. They're bad guys. The problem is they were already here. So now we're looking for them, and on August 25th and 27th, they make plane reservations using their real names.
And al-Mihdhar gave an address also used by Marwan al-Shehi and Muhammad Atta, two of the hijacker pilots.
Muhammad Atta's plane reservation, he uses a phone number which ties you to 5 more.
Nawaif al-Hazmi used the same address as Salam al-Hazmi. And surprisingly, some of them even used the same frequent flyer number.
So it turns out that by knowing just a few, 1 or 2, if you pull the thread, you end up finding 13 of the 19.
Jonas found their names in the newspapers, and they were in the system.
Are you saying that if your NORA, non-obvious relationship awareness, had been in place on a national basis, we might have caught the 9/11 before they happened?
That might be going a little far. It has a lot to do with people and what were the people going to do. I fear that maybe if we knew they were going to get on the plane, we might have surveilled them on the other end, waiting for them to get off the plane to see what meeting they were going to. In fact, they would have never landed. That would have been a bad outcome.
This is all theory, of course. The U.S. does not have anything like this level of sophisticated procedure for sharing information. Having the right information about the right people in the right space of time, this is the greatest challenge for government. When we return, can it be done without harassing the rest of us?
If the government really has reason to think that I'm a threat to aviation security, then I want to know why, and I want a chance to challenge that. If the government doesn't think I'm a risk to aviation security, then I want this harassment that's been going on for 1.5 years now to stop.
Your papers, please. Your papers, please. It usually suggests a checkpoint at a border crossing. In the advanced information age, which is where we are today, every transaction is a checkpoint, where you give up personal information about yourself. Whenever you use your credit card, or use an ID to get in somewhere, every time you go through a toll booth, using a computerized pass, you are telling other people who you are and where you are and when. And almost any piece of information about us that can be found anywhere in the public record is completely available to private companies who market information about us to others, including, with only some limitations, to the government. Peter Swire was the chief counselor for privacy in the Clinton administration.
The Constitution says that your person and your papers and your homes are safe unless an independent judge says it's okay for the government to go in. Here's how the private sector works. If they can find it from the bank, from the hospital, from your online surfing habits, or from other things, if they have that data, they can use it. And then step 2, they sell it to the government. The government's just a subscriber, and we never saw that coming.
The Supreme Court has ruled that information that a citizen conveys to a third party, such as a credit card company or a bank or a hotel, that is no longer in your castle, in your private domain, is not governed by traditional Fourth Amendment rules, because you have already chosen to make that information public by telling somebody else about it.
A recent survey of credit reports, one of the keys to your identity by a public interest group, found that more than half the reports it studied had personal information that was incorrect. The worst experience for any citizen is to lose control of his or her identity.
These are all the names that have been used in connection with my Social Security number. And then there is 65 different addresses and 42 different names.
In April 2000, Nicole M. Robinson of suburban Maryland had her identity stolen by a woman in Texas who worked at a mail-in pharmaceutical company.
My perpetrator had the same first and last name as me, and she looked in her company's databases and found my Social Security number, which was my health plan's member ID number, and used it to open accounts.
Nearly 5 years later, Nicole M. Robinson is still unable to establish definitively who she is, even though the woman in Texas, Nicole A. Robinson, has been arrested.
This is not my date of birth, and they are showing a Texas driver's license number and a spouse's name. And I'm not married.
And if Nicole M. is now somewhere in the government system, for whatever reason, the government may not be able to figure out precisely who she is.
The systems can't determine that we are actually two separate people. So essentially, I am an alias of her, or she is an alias of me.
The government acknowledges that information is often inaccurate.
We have known inaccurate records. There's a big criminal records database called NCIC, and the Justice Department a couple of years ago put out a notice where they said, you should now recognize these records are inaccurate, that they contain inaccuracies and we can't vouch for them. Well, if that's the input, what's the output going to be?
Bad information, badly handled, is a nightmare for private citizens and potentially for the government, which is charged with protecting the citizen. Case in point. David Fati is a lawyer with the American Civil Liberties Union. He's been caught in an information nightmare that leaves him personally frustrated, but also concerned about poor security.
I've had a wide range of experiences when I fly, and I fly quite a bit for my work. Sometimes, and in fact most of the time, I have a completely uneventful experience. Other times I have been led away by armed police. I've been threatened with indefinite detention.
Fati has been told he's on a government no-fly list and detained at airports 10 times in the last year and a half. Fati thinks it may be his name, which is Iranian.
It's unpleasant and stressful and humiliating. And the most frustrating thing about it is that the government won't tell me why I'm on this list, and it won't tell me what I can do to get off.
But Fati is also alarmed that a security system managed by the government in partnership with private airlines doesn't catch him every time.
I'm not a security expert, but it certainly seems to me that if someone's on a list and they're supposed to be stopped, they should be stopped every time. My own experience is some airlines never stop me, some stop me sometimes but not others.
Fati did manage to get a letter from the government clearing his name.
But as far as I can tell, that process has made no difference whatsoever, and I still get stopped with about the same frequency as I did before.
In this and other cases, the government cannot seem to get its information straight. But one of the leading officials in the Department of Homeland Security is determined to get more information about everyone who travels.
And using biometrics takes a tool away from the terrorist, which is false documents.
We met Asa Hutchinson, who's responsible for border and transportation security at New York's Kennedy Airport, where new systems have been installed for getting information about foreign travelers entering the United States. While these visitors were in the air, the government had gone through the information in the passenger manifests, matching the data against government watch lists and sifting for suspicious travel patterns. Now, as visitors from foreign countries pass through immigration, their biographical information is checked by swiping their travel documents like a credit card. The government takes the traveler's fingerprints and their photograph is digitally matched against a database.
We verify that it's the same person. Secondly, it is compared with their name, but also their fingerprints against the terrorist watch list.